Engine 1 from Car 1. Car 1's on scene at Subin Command. Give me a C.A.N report.
Hello, everyone. This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the C.A.N Report. I have a great show today. I'm joined by Chief Jeff Stone. He's a battalion chief with Concord Fire of Concord, New Hampshire. We're going to have a lot of great information to talk about, and I'm excited to have him on. Chief Stone, thank you so much for being on the program today.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. This is great. I'm getting some great guests, and I love talking about New Hampshire, and I love talking to our members of New Hampshire, and you've got some great information, and I can't wait for the public to hear what you've got about training, about the calls you've run, and your outlook on going to conferences and giving passion back to everybody that you come in contact with. So I'm excited to dive into this. Real quick, I'm going to go over Chief's bio here. He's very humble. This bio is super quick, but I was expecting like a 2-page document here, and it's very, very short. So I can tell how much of a humble person you are. Battalion Chief Jeff Stone. He's a dad to 2 amazing service-minded professionals. He's a lifetime student of the fire service, 30-year member of Concord, New Hampshire Fire Department. He is an engine boss at heart. He's 3 years as battalion chief, 22 years as a company officer. He has 36 years in the fire service. He is a fire instructor at the New Hampshire Fire Academy, and he spends time working with many departments as sort of a consultant/instructor, just willing to help departments get on plane with fire service hydraulics, hose, nozzles, fire attack, and passion of standpipe operations, primarily in low, mid-rise, large building environments. Passion inspired by leadership and company-level dynamics, fire and ground operations, and blending the new generation with more tenured members on the job. I love it, Chief. That's great. First off, you are definitely dad to 2 amazing service-minded professionals. You love to brag about your kids, and you have every right to do so, especially with their accomplishments. What is it that they have done?
So my son is he served 4 years in the military in the Army, and he got out. He's now a mechanic, but he still continues to serve as a sergeant with the New Hampshire National Guard. And he really has followed my passion into the serving the community and whatnot. And my daughter, kind of out of left field, when she went to college, decided, actually it was her senior year in college, in high school, took a high school class on law enforcement and decided that she wanted to go to the dark side, which I don't blame her for. She's doing a great job, and she is a police officer in Nashua, New Hampshire.
That's awesome. That's so cool that your kids have gone into helping others just like you do the same thing. And was it any encouragement by you, or was it inspiration, motivation from your career, and they just wanted to follow in your footsteps?
I think obviously being around me for as long as they've been around, you can't help but pick up some of the vibe and the atmosphere that I brought home with me. But I never really pushed them to go in one direction. My son was obviously probably a little bit more interested as a boy, growing up, that, dad was a firefighter and whatnot. And my daughter was kind of like, yeah, whatever, my dad's a firefighter. And, but I think as they went on, they got the sense of service. And I come from a family of service-minded people. My dad was in the Coast Guard. He was the assistant chief at our local little volunteer fire department. But most of the people that my kids were around that they knew were my friends, were in the fire service or in law enforcement. And, I think they just picked it up that this is kind of a way of life for our family, and kind of a way of life that if they decided to adopt it, it would give back to them more than you gave to it.
Sure. That's great. It just says a lot, that you're doing the right thing, that the fact that not just you're in the fire service, right, but that even leading by example to your kids at home, and they see it and they want to emulate their parents, because you can still be, a first responder, and it might not inspire them to want to do things or help others, because if you're in an environment that you hate where you work, or you're not loving your job, then you're going to come home and you're going to bitch about it. And then your kids will be like, well, why would I want to do that? Because dad all day long bitches about the job or the people he works with, or the work he has to do. I don't want to do that. So The fact that it shows how much you love serving others, that you love working with your brothers and sisters, and you love providing that service, reflects upon your children. And that's it's great that they're succeeding in those roles.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, both of them kind of inspired me too, to want to connect with that generation a little bit more, because as you think about it, those are the people that are coming behind us. We're going to have a limited span in the fire service or in our career. And, it's kind of incumbent on any of us to want to leave the next generation a little bit better,
Yes, sir.
and give them the tools. So that's kind of what I've tried to do in raising two great kids, and what I try to do in raising new firefighters, and even some of the older ones that, quite honestly, they raise me sometimes too.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all comes back. It's all it just filters on through, and you start learning from the kids that you actually trained, and that's what makes us so passionate, and it makes us continues to learn. Because the people who shut their minds off, say they can't learn anymore, then they're not going to learn from the new people, because they figure they know it all and they can't absorb any more information. I love learning from the new people. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So you said here that you yeah, I mean, you said the magic words here, that you go to departments and you kind of help them out, especially with fire hydraulics, hoses and nozzles, fire tack. What do you do that? How did you get into that?
Well, the hydraulic stuff I kind of got into, I wouldn't say by accident, but going to conferences, I just took an interest. I was an engine boss for 22 years, and that was where my heart was. I never worked any sustained amount of time on a ladder company, which is fine. And, I took the engine work, and I think probably like 8-10 years ago, I really got engaged in it, started going to some of the conferences, some of the same ones that you've been to, and kind of caught up with those people that were teaching, and realized that, this is a place that really has my heart. And I learned some things, that I wanted to bring back to my department. And then kind of by extension, through some of the things that we had worked on in my department and with my crew, other people started reaching out and saying, hey, you want to come over and give us a class, or you want to talk to us about how we set up our engine, or how we set up our hose and nozzle packages. And then, one of the things that New Hampshire probably will never be on the map for is, standpipe operations, because we haven't had a lot of that stuff in the past. But as more and more development comes through, we're finding that, hey, there are standpipes out there. We do have to operate on them. And just listening to some of the people who were quite passionate about it, I got the same passion and started developing a lot of stuff for our department and working with our crews. And I have to say, it definitely has paid off. But as more and more departments realize that they're going to be more and more of these buildings with standpipes coming into them, they're coming to me and saying, hey, we know you're really into this. Are you interested in giving us a hand? And really, that's where the fire service is really at its best, is when you're willing to work with somebody else and just to make the job better. And I've had a lot of fun going out with a lot of departments and just talking hose, talking nozzles, talking water flow, talking setup on trucks. Just, it's a lot of fun. And I think the first place I really got into it was, we had a hose and nozzle day where they brought a bunch of vendors in at the fire academy. And I kind of went in and I met a guy by the name of Dave Quick. And I'm sure everybody on here is going to know who Dave is. And Dave and I hit it right off first blush, and shared a lot of the passion of hose and nozzle work. Dave will tell you to this day that was the first time that I think a lot of these vendors saw a guy bring out a set of calipers and start measuring their hose. And that made a lot of vendors nervous, I think. But I still have that same set of calipers in my bag at work. And, just when you could hold yourself and the fire service and the vendors accountable to doing truthful work and then doing accurate work, I think it says a lot about where the fire service has come from and to where it's going. We are truly back in control of the fire service and not being governed by all of the boards, the NFPAs, the vendors who are essentially trying to sell you the latest and greatest thing. So that's kind of the cool part, where I really enjoyed getting my feet wet and really getting into it. And been a lot of fun.
That's great. That's awesome that you had such a great memory of working with Quick and introducing that to your love and your passion.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we all love listening to Quick. Everything that he gives is so full of knowledge and great data, and it's tried and true. And he's really helped put, like you just said, high rise on the map, especially in our area. He talks about it a lot. He teaches it a lot. So it's great to have such a great source of information just really right in our backyard with him. He's still humble enough and down to earth enough too, where I reach out to him many occasions and ask him for advice. Like I said many years ago now, where I was struggling at work and I just asked him about work stuff. The whole different thing. He was on a podcast talking about how the workflow goes and how to deal with people. It was great source of information. So as soon as I heard that, I immediately texted him like, hey, I'm going through the same things that you're going through, or that you went with one of your senior guys. Tell me more about it. Tell me how I can help me to get through this bump in the road. And he was very nurturing and very full of great information. And I mean, hell, he taught my Fire 1 class for hose operations. So that was 13 years ago. So, so
yeah, no, Dave is one of those guys, and I think he's representative of where I want to see the fire service go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he cares deeply about the fire service. I think he shares the same passion that you and I do. To just you got to be good at the job, and you're good by being engaged. And
yes,
when you teach, you're way more engaged, and you want to be better every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. One of the reasons why I love teaching is because I'm learning. As I'm teaching, I'm learning. And it either teaches me to, to obviously to how to form my content and how to teach different people. But honestly, when I watch the students move and figure out things, they're teaching me new things. I watched how they, everyone's body mechanics are different, even just that way of watching them do something a little bit different from what I was trying to show them, and it worked for them. Like, oh, I'm gonna put that in my memory bank and use that later on. And it's great to be able to do that, and learn from the kids that and some adults that are going through it. So you always have to be a student. Like you even said, that in your profile, you're a lifetime student of the fire service, and that says something, because we are all students. It's you can never stop learning. It's a fluid job, and it's ever changing. So that's fantastic. So that's great. So when we talked about conferences too, I have seen you in the audience at a couple of conferences that we've both attended, County Fire Tactics being one of them. I remember you sitting right in the front row, and you had your pen and paper out. Here's a guy that's been on the job for 30 something years. You're a battalion chief at Concord, and there you are on the front row, absorbing all that information, taking your notes and asking questions. That says a lot that, you're never above any information that someone can give. So when I looked over to my right and I saw you way down there, this is before I think we really knew each other. And I was like, holy crap, this is fire chief over there from Concord, New Hampshire. All right. I'm in good company. How did you, obviously, because they know you, actually, I think one of them called you out in the audience before too. Like, obviously they've seen you around a bit. You go to it a lot. How did you hear about County Fire Tactics, and what keeps you going almost like year after year?
Well, it's funny that the way that I found Kurt Isaacson, for those who don't know him, I was kind of going through it. Years ago, we had a thing in New Hampshire, and I'm not sure if you remember it, where they had grant-funded training, where everybody was allowed to go to all sorts of classes, and we were able to get coverage, and everything was paid for and whatnot. And that was a point in my life and in my career where I had gotten a little bit stagnant. And once we did this grant-funded training, I think there was one summer that I did like 450 hours of training and really got reignited in the fire service. And then once that all ended, I started looking for more, because, once you start doing something, you want to kind of continue on. And once the fuse has been lit. And so I started looking for just information, guys that were doing webcasts, videos, whatever. And that was really kind of before a lot of the webcast stuff was going out. And I ran across this video of this guy in a really bad maroon shirt. And he's standing up in front of an audience, and he's really passionate, and he's speaking to my heart. And as though I had found the place of a guy that I wanted to meet. And the guy was Kurt Isaacson from Escambia County, Florida. Kurt owns the company, County Fire Tactics. And I realized that what he's doing is he had a conference down there, the High Rise Operations Conference. And I went, that looks good. And my kids were getting to the age where I could afford to go away for a week or so. And so I signed up and went to this conference. And, feeling like you're the hayseed from New Hampshire, going all the way to Florida, and you're kind of out of your element. And, I went to this conference, and I started meeting some of the people. And, the first year I got to meet Bill Guston and talk to him a little bit about some stuff and just started meeting different people. And you realize how small the fire service really is, and that you can get so much more information than you were used to getting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really ignited my interest in getting better. And I've told a lot of people, and I've told Kurt this, that Kurt kind of turned my career. That one cheesy video kind of reignited that I wanted to get more involved in the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've gone down at least once, usually twice, a couple of times, 3 times a year to go to different conferences that he's done down there. Sometimes you're getting some of the same information, but rarely are you not picking something up. You can go to the same class 2, 3 times and pick up new stuff every time. And I'm one of those people that if I write it down, I'll remember it. And now I have dozens and dozens of books, notebooks that I've written in different stuff. I've got probably the last one that I was working
Nice.
on, it's full. I have a lot of that kind of stuff. And I'm not necessarily always going back and referencing it, but it's there. I'll think of something that I need to go back and find something about. And, when I write stuff down, it seems to work well. I kind of did assume a spot on the front row. Kurt always jokes that, yep, he's right there. And it's funny. I think, I know you've met Dan Chunk Nelms, and Chunk usually sat 2 seats down from me. So we kind of both occupied an area of the front row. And,
Just to speak on Chunk real quick, that dude is cool. His whole family is cool. When I got to meet them in Georgia, that was a lot of fun in Georgia, but getting to meet the Nelms family, that was quite the honor. And I'm planning to have them on as well because I think a lot of people need to know who they are.
Yeah.
They have a legacy, right? And it's a dynasty of that family. And he was just what he presented. And just honestly, I don't think I've ever seen him when I'm at Pensacola. I don't think I've actually ever run into him. Now, if I ever go, maybe I'll hopefully bump it.
Yeah.
You can't miss him, but apparently I do.
He sits on one side of the aisle and Trey sits on the other, I think.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, and I think, just being there and getting exposure to some of these people who, a lot of times we'll watch those FDIC keynote addresses and we put some of these folks up on a mantle. But then when you get to sit and have a beer with them or just talk shop, you realize they're just like you.
Yeah.
And they love the fire service just the same way you do. You wouldn't be there if you weren't interested, and they wouldn't be there if they weren't interested. And so you find that common connection, and people that you thought were so much better than you, they're humble and they just want, whether it's the guy that's coming to his first conference or whether it's Ray McCormick or Mo Davis, everybody just talks the same language. And, it's really refreshing. And every year it's kind of been my refresh to go down there, get some training, reconnect with some very like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
And just share the passion,
I agree 100%. That's why I love going. I'm hoping that maybe I can get my wife to come down one year when we have the time. Well, that's what's another great thing too, right? Is that the majority of the conferences that I've gone to, but I mean, they really promote having spouses attend. And I think that's such a great feature. Plus, I mean, especially if you're going in the summertime, I mean, what wife doesn't or spouse want to come and hang out at the beach and pools and have, discounted cocktails and food and have some fun.
Yeah.
I think it's a great event. And I love the fact that you and I have some of the same interests, and it is addicting. My wife can admit to that I've become addicted to a lot of these conferences, and it's a joy to do these things. It's a blessing that we can actually go and be able to get this information. Like I was talking to my father-in-law, one of my first podcasts with them, and they didn't have, back in the day, 28 years, even for you, right? You've been in a job for 30 something years. Like you didn't have the luxury of having information in the palm of your hands, and they didn't have conferences. They didn't have these people who either had their private training companies, and just a place for everybody to meet and learn from each other. It's a game changer. To be able to learn, like you said, from people that we hold so much regard to, that now we get to be up close and personal and have an intimate training session with them. I mean, that's something real special, and I can never get enough of it. And everything that I bring back from my trainings, I do it because I want to learn, I want to be better, and I want to give it back. I just got to be lucky enough to do training in Dover. They got some new packs, they got some MSAs, and They wanted an outside person to come in and teach them some just basic refreshers. The guys in Dover know their stuff. They're a top-notch department, right? And who is some schmuck like me coming in to teach them how to use their packs? And that was out of my scope. That was something that I normally don't do because I'm normally teaching at the academy and I'm teaching 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds, all right? And they're there to absolutely learn everything that I have to give to them. And here I am with guys have been on the job, 30 something years, and they know it, but they were so humble. But everything that I learned from these conferences, I got to give to them, and that's what it is. I'm giving it to them. I'm giving it back. You can't keep it. You can't hoard it. And as I told them, I was like, this is just a way. It's not the way. You guys know how to do your job. Please by all means do it. But here's just some extra nuggets. If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, at least you saw it. But to be able to go like to Pensacola, to go to Georgia, to go to Texas and get those intimate training sessions and be able to bring that back. Because if I never did that, and if you never did that, all we ever learned is in our area code, and we'll never get to see it. So going out there and seeing that information and getting my hands on it and then get to bring it back here, man, it just pays dividends, because now 60 something people that I taught the other day or for the last 2 weeks, they get to do it. They learned it. And now they get to teach 20 more people. It's awesome. So I love that you and I both have that passion, and I can never preach it enough that people need to take advantage of it because it's there. You know where to find it. And if you don't, reach out to Chief Stone or reach out to Mike Goldstein, and we can send you to the right sources.
Well, and I think, that brings up a good point, is that one of the things that, and it's not a knock about anybody's individual department, but I've told a lot of my folks in Concord, if you're relying upon the Concord Fire Department to teach you everything you need to know to be a good firefighter, you're going to be disappointed. And I'm sure it's the same in every department, whether it's Nashville, Manchester, Derry, FDNY, anywhere. If you're relying only upon your department, then you're basically limiting yourself to one view.
Yes, sir.
And that cultural bias that goes with your department. And it's not, like I said, it's not knocking a specific department or their culture, but until you get out there and you see how the other side does it, you don't know. Shannon Stone, in one of his classes that he taught, I think the one thing I took out of his whole class was, you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. And when you think about it, it's kind of a cliche phrase, but then you start breaking it down, you go, man, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot out there that we don't know because we've never gone out there to try and experience it or find it.
Yes, sir.
And, and like I said, in this world, the fire service is a much smaller place now, thanks to, webcasts and social media, all the books and conferences that are coming out. It's a much smaller place. So the ability for people to get that kind of information is now there.
Yep.
And like you said, we didn't have that 25, 30 years ago. When I started, going to a big conference meant going 30 miles away to Meadowwood.
Yes.
And that was going away.
Yeah. And now it's coming back. And now it's coming back. So now we could hopefully take advantage of that as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mentors. And we talked a little bit about that. So mentors in your posse and who got you there. Touch on that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of, kind of to build on what I was talking about before, a lot of people look at mentors as being that one person who just made or broke your career, that you followed heart to heart the entire time, and they took an interest in you. But in my mind, mentors are people that you can glean anything from. So I talk a lot about, when I teach, I always say that there's almost nothing that I'm going to teach you that somebody else didn't teach me. I don't come up with the original things. There's nobody in the fire service that's putting anything out there that is so unique that it just blows people's minds. It's a regurgitation and a refinement of many years of experience passed down through many generations. But you can get that from anybody. They don't have to be that old guy on, the engine from Boston or something like. It can be, like you said, one of those new people coming through. whether it's how they approach life at the fire service, whether it's they say something or they give a speech that invigorates you, or whether it's they show you techniques or give you, the benefit of their wisdom over many years. When I talk about mentors, I have them from every level in the fire service. Everybody had Mike Clark as a mentor, and rightly so. He was one of America's mentors. But I can go all the way down the line, and the rookie on my shift could be one of my mentors because he's so into the job,
Right.
and he listens. He's contra to his generation and how much he wants to know. And so, that can be a mentoring moment. And when I go back in my career and I look at all the people that contributed to get me to where I am today, they're from every level. They're from a lot of different jobs. I mean, I have some strong roots in law enforcement other than my daughter. And, so I have a lot of friends that gave me a lot from the law enforcement side. And a lot of what we do is not so much the skill and technique, it's the mindset and the commitment and the dedication to your job.
Yeah.
So whether it's a welder, whether it's a nurse, whether it's a ditch digger, you can get things in terms of work ethic, commitment, love, whatever it is from those people, and you can parlay it in. And a lot of my mentors really are, that broad segment from across America of people that I've just gotten stuff from, and those people that, you realize they put their pants on the same way that you do.
Yeah.
And, they can always offer you something, and hopefully somewhere along the line, I've offered something to some of them. But I always want to give credit to those people, because like I said, very little of this, anything that I regurgitate is anything that I came up with. I'll put my spin on it, just like you would put your spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody passed it to us and somebody passed it to them. And hopefully somebody that we pass it to is going to pass it on to somebody else. And that's what makes the fire service great.
Yes, sir.
So, the posse thing is just, I kind of consider that the people that not so much within my department, but from outside the department that you can go bounce things off, whether it's, giving Shannon and DJ Stone a call down in Pensacola and just saying, hey, got this thing. Can you give me a little insight on it? Or, you have a call and everybody reaches out to you because they want to know about it. And I've had a couple of those instances where, man, all of a sudden your phone blows up and you didn't even realize it should because somebody saw something on the news or saw a picture of something on social media and they're like, hey, I know somebody that works there. So that's your posse. Those are the people that know you well enough that they feel comfortable reaching out to you and saying, hey, I want to know what you got. And, you can reach out to them and say, hey, man, I want to know what you got. So that's really your posse.
It's funny you say that, is it really hits home to me because I've, over these last few years, probably now, I want to say 3 to 5 years, I've now developed that posse. And it's not just internal. It's not just in New Hampshire, but like you just said, like, Shannon, DJ Stone, they're part of your posse. And they just, like, as you were talking, that's exactly what I feel like I have now. Like I've developed that. I've got a team. I've got my group that I'll text and ask questions to. For me, it's Kevin Pfluger, it's Tom Hollick, it's the Cano brothers, it's Andrew Starnes, it's Nate Sturm, and I'm not trying to name drop, right? But these are people that have honestly motivated, inspired me. Joe Johnson, Shane Bentley. These are guys that they haven't lived the cleanest lives, right? And so for me, that hits home because these are guys that are solid down to earth, and they've not just giving you fire lessons, they're giving you life lessons. And so these are people that you can reach out to, and they're your brothers, and they inspire you to live a cleaner life because they've lived a life that wasn't conducive to what they need to do in their families, and they talk about it freely. And it's an opening experience, and to have them part of my posse, just like you worded, I think it's great. And as just listening to you say that, that's exactly what hit home. Like I have that. I never realized it until you just said that, but I have that group, I have that posse, and it's always building. It's not closed. It's for people, and it's people I have in New Hampshire, and Brian Rondu, Will Tallheimer. Like, I got a big group in New Hampshire as well, and I never realized that was my posse. What's great about a posse is it's not 5. There's no number on it, and like you said, man, you can text somebody with a question or even a life question. And because, you know, they've lived that life, that they can help you out and hopefully talk you off that ledge and guide you to a better place. So I love that, man. That's fantastic, Chief. And so the next one, we got lessons from 30 years. You talk about turning your career around, changing your mindset. You got a few pinpoints here. So it sounds like you got some stories to go with that.
Yeah. So when I started in the fire service, I started in 1995, and yeah, you can call me old. Back then I didn't feel so old, and even today I don't feel quite so old. But, you know, I had this roadmap in my mind of what I wanted to achieve in my career, walking through the door of the Concord Fire Department in January of 1995. And it was pretty rigid. You know, I wanted to promote every 5 years. I wanted to end my career as the chief of department. And I really didn't put together the roadmap of how you get there or that anything could change. And as we all know, you know, you start anything as a young single person, and then life happens. Family happens, relationships happen, kids happen, and, you know, the road starts going like this a little bit. And I got into the fire service. You know, I was a paramedic, and I got in, I worked 4 years as a paramedic in Concord, and I took a promotional test for lieutenant. And I had the ability to study really well and retain a lot of knowledge, read all the books, was able to regurgitate it all when the test came out. And I was able to talk fairly well during my interview. But what I didn't have was wisdom, and I didn't have experience. And I will tell you right now that the stupidest thing that the Concord Fire Department ever did was promote me at 4.5 years to lieutenant, because I was not prepared for it. Yeah. And I don't say that in a self-deprecating mode. It's just that
you haven't lived life yet.
A lot of people don't realize what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. And promotions, as you go up the ladder, I always really believe that your first promotion to company officer, to lieutenant, is kind of, that's for you. You know, you're doing that to make yourself better, provide a better life for your family and whatnot. But as you go up that ladder to captain, battalion chief, deputy chief, whatever it happens to be, it's less and less about you. And I think people need to remember that is the further you go up the ladder, it's about them. And we all get into this job because we want it to be, you know, we want to serve others. Nobody's getting into this job because they want to be rich. If you are,
in the wrong job,
we take the lieutenant's test at 4.5 years. But what happened was it forced me to think on the fly. And I really had to do some self-growth because, as I said before, if you're relying upon your department to prepare you for everything you're going to run into, not going to happen. You need to get out there. And back then, we didn't have the ability to get out and get that kind of training. I didn't get leadership training. I got at the time it was called Comp Funds. It's now called Primex. I got the Primex Municipal Supervisors class. So I sat in class with the guy from General Services, the lady from the library, to learn about how to supervise people. Well, that's not the fire service. And, you know, I went to company officer class and I met a lot of good people there, but even company officer was a very canned course, and it wasn't as dynamic as what we find now when we go to conferences. You're talking about people who have been there and they're sharing their experience. So what happens is I think you get complacent, so to speak. So I guess what I was saying was that, you know, you don't get the benefit of the real world stuff, and you either got to think on the fly or you got to go find some information somewhere. And through the whole course of that time, I kind of got stagnant. I really let my professional interest kind of slide a little bit. And it wasn't until that grant funded training where I went and got a whole bunch of training, a lot of certifications and a lot of paperwork that really don't mean a lot, but I got some training and I got reinvigorated into doing training. And I think that was really when I kind of turned the corner and started engaging my career a lot more. And my biggest regret is that I wasted quite a few years of my career, probably close to a decade, of just kind of being there, you know, not being really engaged. And it wasn't until, you know, a few years ago when I got into it, and I'm like 40 years old at that time. And you're thinking, how much of my career did I waste not being engaged, not being into the job? And, you know, I would say that's a huge regret for me, because I probably would be in a better place than I am now, with being able to be that mentor for other people. Like they say, if you could set back time, 10 years, man, there are a lot of things I'd like to do a little bit over, but, I am where I am now. You can't change yesterday. And, I'm happy for what I've accomplished in the last 10 years, I would say.
Well, that's, and we talk about all the time. It's life lessons learned. And what's great is, it happened. That, like we all say, no one's perfect. And that you get to bring that knowledge to the next generation and multiple generations. And now you get to advise them like, hey, wait, you've only been here for 4 years. You might want to hold up on doing that lieutenant spot yet. Trust me, here's my experience. And I couldn't agree more, Chief. Like, I had this conversation a while back with one of my officers, and it's just, some people are just so quick to promote, and you haven't even lived life yet. And I mean, like, how are you going to relate to somebody if you've never dealt with any kind of hardships yourself? And hopefully people don't have those hardships and difficulties in life, but how are you going to be that person's going to be able to sympathize with them or be able to say, yeah, I know where you're coming from, when you really don't, because you haven't lived life yet, especially if you're like you're a 20-year-old lieutenant, or you're a 25-year-old lieutenant. How much have you lived yet? And it's not even fire. Right. It's because now you're a boss.
Emotional
intelligence. Yes, sir. Right. You have to live that life first to be able to lead others and to guide them through what life throws at you. And you have to learn that now on the job. That's where, like, I'm sure you're coming from. Like, you're going to be making those mistakes and not take it seriously. Like, it's great to ride the front seat and be an engine boss, man. That's one of the best seats you can have, except for the tailboarder, but when you have a guy that comes up to you and goes, hey, this is happening in my life right now, what do I do? And you're 25 years old and you've never really struggled or dealt with any kind of crazy shit. You'd be like, well, damn, I don't know. I've never had that happen to me before. I'm only 25 years old. What do you expect me to tell you? So yeah, life lessons, they definitely make you good leaders.
Yep.
And it's how we roll the punches to make us that.
Yeah, and it goes to that concept that I try to bring forward, is that it's not about you anymore. It's about them. Whether it's them, the public, whether it's them, your people, them, your organization. And I think that's one of the things, I took away from Cody Trestrail, is just, he makes it so much about everybody else. It's not about him. If you want to gauge success, personal success, it's how well your team is doing. And,
yes, 100%.
There are leaders all throughout the fire service who will reinforce that for you, that, ain't any one of us going to put out the fire by ourselves. It's going to be the team, going to be the company, going to be the shift, whatever that does the work. It's, and it's not, no one of us is going to make everything happen.
100%, Chief. Talking about work, talking about teamwork, I want to dive into that call that you had recently. February 16th, because I'm sure everybody wants to hear about it. You did such a great job reflecting on it. You made a great post about the work that you guys did. What's great is you made the post and you said, you're collecting your thoughts. And I love too that you're not afraid to make these posts and to talk about what the situation was, the performance, the history. I mean, yeah, it's a long post. It's a good read. And in this generation, well, not generation, in this day and age, long worded posts, sometimes people just usually glance at. I'm one of those guys. I'm not a heavy reader at times, so I just kind of do it in segments. But as I was reading in a couple of days of that unfolded, it was great. Actually, I thought I was going to get called to it. I thought our department was going to go up and give you guys an ambulance, because when you have a mass casualty, or not even a casualty per se, but you do these whole strike teams for resources. Usually, especially for New Hampshire, I figured our department might be going up there to stage with an ambulance, but you guys had it under control pretty well. Can you talk about that for the people who don't know? This was a situation that occurred while Chief was on shift. There was a nursing home that had a fire. He called a working fire for a resident nursing home that had 60 plus residents in it. And I'll let you take it from there, Chief.
Yeah, so it's still fresh in the mind a little bit, and we haven't even done our after actions yet, but we're, and this is a little bit of, as you and I were talking a little earlier about, there was a lot to unpack after this incident. And in hindsight, the incident didn't turn out to be quite as serious as it could have been. And I think that's a testament to the people that were doing the work. But to kind of give you a little overview of what it was, is Granite Ledges is it's an assisted living community. They do have a memory care clinic there, or memory care unit there. And I will definitely say and I'm sure it's the same in Derry or in any other town or city in New Hampshire or any other place. There are some nursing homes that you go there and you go, would be awful if we had to go here. And then there are some that aren't. And this was definitely one of the ones that had their stuff together. And I can't stress that enough, is that the building and their people made this operation just as much as Concord Fire or anybody else.
So the staff was well trained and well versed in what needed to be done.
Very.
That's great.
And it came in as the engine company, Engine 4, went up there, and it hit me. And if I can give you a piece of advice, follow your gut, because your gut usually is right. And I heard the call come in, and it was an odor investigation. And we have the ability to monitor the CAD in our office. I looked at it, and it was like, yeah, just an odor investigation on the second floor. And we go to odor investigations all the time. But something in the back of my mind was like, yep, okay. So the lieutenant got there and gets a little bit of the story that they had been doing some work apparently on the roof. And I still don't have the full context of everything that they had done. But the lieutenant, who's the newest lieutenant on the department, but he's been around for a while, Greg Michaud, going up through getting the report from the guy that was there. He said, yeah, we have a little odor up in the attic. It smells kind of like smoke or electric, not sure. Something piqued Greg to say, let's pop a hatch at the top of the stairs as they're going up. And this isn't a place where you go in and you go up the stairs to the third floor. It's up, over, up, down, over, through. And as he's getting to the top of the stairwell, he and the firefighter that were on duty popped a hatch. And the firefighter got up there on a ladder, looked in, he says, hey, Lou, there's a little bit of smoke in here. Okay. So Greg fills out the box, which gets a full 2 engines, 2 ambulances, and a tower and a BC. So as we're going up there, I'm listening in, and our dispatcher, we've upgraded our CAD in the last year, and he says, I'm not sure that the assignment for this is fully built out, but do you want me, if this is something, what do you want to do? And I said, well, whatever you do, we used to have a high-rise assignment on our old CAD, and we never had to use it. We built this out 20 plus years ago because we have some quote, high-rise, New Hampshire high-rise, which is like 3 stories or more above. Yeah. And we had built this out, and I just said, and I knew from my years that this involved bringing in different departments than we normally work with, just because it's a different type of occupancy. And knowing what kind of occupancy this is, I just told the dispatcher, said, go ahead and build this out as if it was a high rise. And he knew what that meant, because he's been around for a long time. And right then, Greg said on the radio, he said, fire alarm, we have a report of fire in the building. And so he called the work and fire. And I immediately, we were on the radio, you start going a little bit faster. You start thinking about all the things, because now this is a fire in the building that came in as an odor investigation. So it's not like you're going out the door in one mindset and carrying it through. We're going out the door with an odor mindset, and shame on us for being a little bit complacent, especially myself. But then you're trying to build it all up in your mind, how you're going to build this out. I got there fairly quickly, had Ambulance 4 right behind me, who works with our engine. So in Concord, our companies are set up that 3 of the houses have an engine in them. 1 of the houses has a truck in it, and each house has an ambulance with it as well. So the engines work with their ambulance, and the tower works with its ambulance, unless we kind of change things up. That night, we had everybody in service, which happens about 0.1% of the time in Concord, that we have every company in service. So everybody got dispatched, all hands. Everybody's going. Everybody gets to work with their company. Ambulance 4 is right behind me. They go into work with Engine 4. They've got a working fire. The lieutenant makes a great call, says, hey, we've got fire from the eaves in the back of the building. Now, this is a 3-story wood frame over steel structure, steel skeleton building with very lightweight trusses in the attic. And they had fire from the eaves. So the lieutenant made a great call to pull what we call a leader line, which is 2-inch off the end of 2.5. Around the back, they started hitting it from the outside because they didn't know even how to get up into the attic where that fire was. And it was right in the eave. Build out the response. We get everybody there. And this is a place where we've been to a lot of fire alarms in the past. And the population are, they're like any assisted living or retirement community. They're not highly mobile. They're slow to react. And in the past, they had actually had the folks, when they evacuate them, they would bring them out into the middle of the driveway and put them in chairs.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where we need to drive sometimes. We'd actually worked with them on finding a better place to move them to, and they had actually kept them all on the sidewalk to the side. This is something we'd worked on for the last probably year or so with them, and it paid dividends this night. We were able to get everybody in. Everybody knew their job. Everybody knew where they had to go. Everybody got an assignment, filled out that assignment, and took care of it. And just a lot of great calls. And I really put this on the company officers. If you've ever read Scott Thompson's book, The Functional Fire Company, that's something that I take to heart. I've taken a couple of Chief Thompson's classes, hit very close to home. Read his book 2 or 3 times now. I ask all my officers when they come to the shift to read the book, because it formulates the kind of the mindset that we go in. I'm not a chief that's going to micromanage my crews. Mm-hmm. The companies are the company officer's responsibility. We'll evaluate that stuff on training ground, on incidents, and we'll make adjustments. But at the end of the day, the company officer owns the company. I own the company officers. So if the company officers are thinking along the same playbook that I am, we're in good shape. I let them do their job, and they do it very well. And that night, everybody from the officers to the firefighters did their job. This was not a complex fire. It was just a complex building that presented as a massive hazard. We were able to get, after we ended up operating off a standpipe in that building, which is, again, one of those things that we have not done a lot of, but we've trained a lot on.
Sure.
And it worked very well. So we had a little bit of luck when the truck company went up into the 3rd floor to look for the fire to help the engine. They popped 3 ceiling tiles and found both of the hatches into the attic in 3 ceiling tiles. So we didn't bother buying lottery tickets later in the night because we knew we couldn't get any better than that. So sometimes it's a little bit better to be lucky than good.
So the hatches were hidden by the ceiling tiles?
What's that?
The hatches were hidden.
Yep.
With the ceiling tiles?
So it's drop ceilings. They knew that there would be somewhere in here there was a hatch, and the tallest guy in the truck hit 3 ceiling tiles and found both hatches. So, that saved a lot of time. If we'd had to rip down, 30 or 40 ceiling tiles to find the hatch to get in there, would have made a big difference. So while they're doing all this, I'm sitting out in the fire SUV, which is kind of my least favorite place in the fire ground. And I'm looking at all of these residents in a 9-degree weather coming out onto the sidewalk. They want to go back in. They're cold. Some of them don't have shoes on. They're huddled in blankets. And I don't have a lot of resources yet. And Chief Chisholm shows up. And I'm just like, I'm furiously scratching stuff down on the board, things that are going on, where people are. This is a 60,000 square foot building on 3 floors. Some of it's locked down because of memory care, just a lot of challenges. And now I've got 60 plus residents out on the front entryway, and we got to do something because it's a working fire. And we still don't really know how much of it is going. We don't know if it was end to end in the attic and getting ready to break out or whatnot. So we had to make the choice. We got to do something with these people. And Chief Chisholm had shown up times and one of the Concord Police Department did a great job. Their sergeant showed up, goes, "What do you need, Chief?" And I said, "I need to get these people somewhere." He says, "Say no more. We're working on it." Chief Chisholm, I asked him, I said, "Can you take over getting rid of these people, getting them somewhere, work with the staff, whatnot. And it came to mind, like, this is basically an MCI.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have people to treat, but we have people that are going to quickly become patients if we don't move them out of here.
Yeah,
And
and
so
like
we
you
ended
said,
up
like
calling,
the fact that they're elderly, like we got
yeah,
problems now where we don't want them to catch a cold. Catch a cold leads to pneumonia for them, and the pneumonia is usually death, right, for them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like, um,
And we don't want them
that's
walking off.
yeah, and then mental facility. Oh man, you got a lot
Yeah.
going on just dealing with making sure, and the staff is now, I'm sure, going to become overwhelmed with keeping them all wrangled up and warm.
Yeah. And so it came to mind, I'm like, you know what? We're going to call an MCI, get a bunch of ambulances in here. We'll take them somewhere. And I kind of tasked the fire chief with just take that over. And he and the Concord Police Department sergeant and a few others started working on it, which was great because it took it out of my hands and let me focus on the building. We were able to get the fire knocked down really quick, extended the line off the standpipe. We were able to finish it up pretty quick, but we had a lot of work. There's a lot of places to search in a 60,000 square foot building,
Yeah,
especially when it's residential. And so as things went, we had all of the help. We had people showing up. It's amazing how many people jump on trucks and come back to work when they think you're burning down a nursing home. So normally we have some problems getting some people back in on calls, on recall. We ended up having pretty much over half the department came in.
that's
And then we
awesome.
had every truck that came in, every mutual aid piece had 3, 4, 5 people on it. We had called from Manchester because they were kind of integral to our original plans to do the high-rise assignment, and they send us an engine, truck, the heavy rescue, and a battalion chief. Which, when you know you've got that kind of resource coming that has some history and training in dealing with occupancies like this, it's a big reassurance. And you can put resources to work before you have all the bases covered. I guess knowing that
Yeah,
you kind of have the next string of people coming in who can just fill right in and fill any role you need them to. And like I said, this is not to knock any other department. Calling some of our neighboring mutual aid towns who are great. They come in to help us all the time. But operating in large buildings like this off a standpipe that's not their forte, and it's not their comfort
sure.
zone. And for
Yeah,
me,
because we have smaller towns in New Hampshire, and you're surrounded by smaller towns that don't have
yeah,
large buildings, and they don't. That standpipes
yeah,
is just like, it's a foreign word to them.
yeah. And as an incident commander, if I put them in that place, that's on me. And I don't want to set them up for failure. I want to set them up for success. So there are a lot of things that they were able to fill in perfectly. I asked, I think it was the Boscawen chief. I said, can you guys just handle all the salvage needs? Just go through the building, evaluate what you need to do, take care of that. I think Allenstown, I asked them to do secondary searches on floors 1 and 2. Other towns were doing bottles. Some were doing, we had ambulances coming out our ears. Everybody filled a role. It did this. And
Yeah,
it's impressive to see. And in the moment, it's all whipping by your head and you're trying to catch up. And I think, to the point of like the post that I had made, writing is one of those ways that I process things. And I've always found that when you have an incident like this, other people want to know about it.
yes, sir.
And if you can share some of those experiences, whether they're good or bad, they're going to benefit somebody else. And that was kind of the purpose of what I had talked about in that post. And I think it was one of those cases where I didn't realize how well it went or how bad it could have gone until after the incident had basically gone under control.
Yeah,
And literally, I truly believe if we had waited 2 more hours before somebody smelled the smoke in that building, we would have had a totally different circumstance. If the lieutenant didn't pop that hatch and catch that there was some smoke in that attic, we'd have had
sure.
a totally different circumstance. If he didn't make the right call to take a line around the back and start hitting the soffits, we'd have had a totally different circumstance. If we didn't get it where we did, we'd have had a totally different circumstance. And when you're dealing with a fire in the eaves and in the attic, in a building that is tough to get into, a lot of HVAC stuff,
Yeah.
We could have very easily burnt the roof off that place in a heartbeat. And the fact that we didn't is a testament to the folks on the end of the hooks and the hose that were doing the work, all the people that were going in the building. Oh, they really did their job, and they did it so well. And everybody was thinking out of the same playbook, because that's the way that we've trained in the past. And I've talked with a few people over the last week and a half or so about it. And I said, I really felt like on July 4th, when the Boston Pops are playing on the Esplanade, and they're up there and the fireworks are going off, and they asked the 6-year-old to get up on stage and conduct the orchestra. That's what I was. I was the 6-year-old conducting up there. I'm waving my hands around. I'm making radio transmissions, and the band played on, and they did it so well.
That's
and
awesome.
That was the fire side of it. And then to know that all of the EMS resources that we called in did their job. So when I activated an MCI response, it actually activated some things that I wasn't even thinking about. One of those was when you call the hospital and you ask them, hey, listen, we've got an MCI going on. They call a lot of people in. I had no idea that they were going to do that. Again, better to be lucky than good. Concord Hospital opened up their cafeteria.
Oh, nice.
One of the things that none of us were really aware of is that the nursing homes have a sort of a mutual aid system, that when one of them has to move a bunch of residents, which when you think about it, that could happen, and it has happened quite a few times. Yeah. They all bring their buses and they bring their staff and they help each other out. And that's what they did that night. We had buses from a couple of different places. We had a Concord School District school bus that the PD got for us. And we moved 60 some odd people, medications, staff, all the things that they were going to need over to the Concord Hospital cafeteria. They checked them all in over there, kept them all taken care of. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was injured. Nobody was sick. Nobody was suffering. They fed them. They played games with them. I mean, it was just, when I went over after the incident and de-escalated, I was like, to see how well this went and to know how well my end, I call my end, the fire side went, and then to walk over and see on the EMS side how well that went. I was like, man, we hit a home run tonight. And I really believe it's the people that did that job, and it's the preparation that we did and the mindset that we have, and we're all operating off the same playbook. So great incident, but I think it highlighted something that I think you've probably heard me talk about maybe when we do the stuff with the kids at the academy, is that we will train our entire careers. And everybody goes, training again. But you'll train your entire career preparing for basically a 30-second window where you're either going to get it done or you're not. And this was not a 30-second window, but this is, I don't want to say a once-in-a-lifetime fire, but this is something that when I came on shift, none of us were thinking, oh yeah, we're going to Granite Ledges tonight for a fire. And we're going to evacuate.
This was your top 5.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you don't want to come out of an incident like that wishing that you'd done better and that you were better prepared. And I think that's what I'm most proud of all the crews that were working there that night, is they were prepared. They brought their A game. And in fact, I had one of my crews, the crew of Ambulance 4, they were mad that they didn't get to go up and stretch the standpipe because they were out back putting out the fire and putting up 235s. But when I sat down with them, I said, hey, listen, you guys actually made that fire by putting the water in the right spot. If you hadn't done that, it doesn't give them the chance to get the standpipe packs out. It doesn't give them a chance to find those 3 ceiling tiles. It doesn't give them a chance to open up and hold it in check, and it doesn't work as well. So every single person on that fire ground just made that incident work. And man, I felt like the 6-year-old kid just going, I conducted the Boston Pops.
And, and behind the scenes too, right? You have your dispatch center who, he even said, he's like, nah, this doesn't sound like the assignment you want. We're gonna change this up for you. For him to understand that, like, this is going to be something larger scale than what you think it's going to be right off the bat, that definitely set, like an orchestra, it set your tempo, and he helped keep that pace. So the fact that you had such top-notch people on the ground, on the radio, and that comes with experience, right? The fact that I'll say dispatcher did, I guess I'm a little biased because that's where I came from, but they're your dispatcher to understand like, hey, chief, this is going to be more of a high-rise assignment for you, and we don't really have that, so let's upgrade this for you. That's
Yeah, and
pretty
I'll give
cool.
that shout out to Scotty Burke because he was the guy making that call. He's the lead dispatcher of the night, and he works my shift, so we always work together. So he kind of knows what I'm thinking, and I know what I'm thinking. He'll pick up on different things, and he'll let me know, and he just knows what I need him to listen to and what I need him to give me feedback on. And he did a great job that night. Matt Nelson, the other dispatcher, did a great job. They worked together well. At one point, Matt was calling me on the radio, and I just said, Matt, you're going to have to wait. I just got too much going on here.
Yeah.
And thankfully, one of the mutual aid folks came in, the chiefs came in, and I just said, I need you to handle all the communications to fire alarm because I just don't have the bandwidth. And, it's a frustrating feeling when you realize that that's one of those handicaps that if we hadn't had that kind of help to help us out, it wouldn't have gone the same way. Again, it just everything came together, went great. And when you think about how incidents could go wrong, you don't want to be second guessing yourself after the fact saying, man, I wish I had been more prepared for that. Because you don't want the ultimate tragedies going on. You don't want to have lost firefighters. You don't want to have massive loss. Nobody wants to be proud of burning a building to the ground. But as I've told some people in the past, I'll burn every building in the city to the ground if I don't lose a single person. And in this case, we got both.
That's awesome.
We did save the building, which would have been a catastrophic loss to the city and to the nursing home community. In fact, we were able to move anybody whose family didn't come get them. We moved over 60 residents back in that night, and they stayed that night. So to me, that was really the true measure of success is these people who have some limitations, age-wise, memory-wise, were all able to be back in their units with their people, with their caregivers that night. And that to me was just, it was kind of rewarding to see all these folks coming back into the building that I had just watched walk out, huddled in blankets and no shoes and stuff to come back in, and they're happy to be home. And, that's a cool thing when you can give that kind of service. And then I guess the final shout out that I have to give is to the staff. The staff at this place and the staff over Concord Hospital, man, they stepped up in a way that we don't normally expect.
Sure.
And I think this will be one of those things that we build off of going forward, is to have an after action with those folks to be able to demonstrate that the way that went should be the model that other places should follow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of lessons to be learned in how they prep their playbook to be set up for success when that huge incident came. Because I know nobody there was thinking, when I go home tonight, they're going to call me and say that they're burning the building down.
Right.
They already had a playbook, and all they had to do was call a play.
And that's training on their part, right? I mean, we always do the fire drills, right? Nursing homes, schools, they practice, they do their daily drills, or not their daily, but they usually do their monthly drills. And then there's times that we come in as fire departments and assist them with that. Sometimes facilities don't take it real seriously. The ones that do, it's a success. And it shows that they take their training seriously.
Yeah. And that highlights that, healthcare since the pandemic has really, you've probably noticed it in your jurisdiction, but it's been a revolving door of help. There's been a lot of people that are coming and going. It's hard to maintain that playbook and keeping everybody on the play. And when a place can put that kind of work into it to make sure that everybody's on the playbook, man, what a difference it made. Because I can say that there are some other occupancies in the city that we probably wouldn't have had that level of success with. And
sure.
So it is a testament to their preparation that this incident went as well as it did. It was not just us. It was not just Concord Hospital or the mutual aid. It was the facility. It was everybody. Everything went well. And man, like I said, I don't know how much of a role of it I had in it, other than, like I said, being the conductor, that I can sleep well knowing that went well. And I don't know how we could have made it a lot better, like you. And when I go to a call, something like that, I write down notes. I was forwarding for the next 24 hours, writing stuff down, just the little things like you always second guess yourself. You always pick up that one little thing. but there was no big thing. There was
That's
nothing there
great.
that I went, oh, man, we really missed that, but we made out okay.
Yeah. Like you got lucky, and we missed
Yeah.
it, but we got lucky that didn't happen. No, the
Yeah,
fact
no,
that you guys are well-oiled machine. That's again, it says training all over the place, training from your department, training from the nursing staff, the hospital staff. Like that's just everyone knowing their jobs is when it all comes together like that. Like that's what, again, like you said, like, was the fire big? No, but the scale of the operations, that's what made it big. The fact that you had 70 residents, but then now you had to involve a whole bunch of mutual aids, the nursing staff of the nursing home and the hospital, they're involved because normally, right, our fire scenes are not involving hospitals. And now you've got them opening up their doors and they're calling in more staff to handle things and to err on the side of caution. Like, I can't imagine anyone's going to be like, well, what'd you call an MCI for? Now you got us all up and we got more staff here. How dare you? It's like, how dare you if you didn't do that and it got worse, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a saying we have in dispatch, again, because I did it for like 15 years. So it's when in doubt, send them out. And that was the thing. There was always that common rhyme in my head. So it's the same thing in the fire scene. If you have that, you said, like, listen to your instincts. If you roll up and something just doesn't seem right, you just go with your gut and go with that, because God forbid you didn't. And you'd be like, well, I didn't want to add an extra alarm because I didn't want to bother anybody. I didn't want to do MCI because I didn't want to cause a panic. Like, God forbid you didn't, because then you'd be on the news saying, well, Battalion Chief Stone didn't do this, and now we're investigating why he didn't do that. I didn't want to bother anybody.
Yeah, and to highlight that point, I'd made a point to make sure that we called the task force in from Manchester, and when they got there, there's a little flash in the back of your mind goes, I haven't got anything for them to do. And some people will go, oh, man, I'm sorry, man. I thought it was going to be worse. But in this case, I was like, man, I'm so glad you were coming, because it allowed me to make decisions for my folks, to do certain things that I might not have otherwise made. And, and Steve DeZrusso, who you and I both know and have taught with, he was the battalion chief and he showed up. I gave him and his crew some assignments. They really didn't have to do much, and they were cool with it. And, they recognized the scope of what could have been, and, they're happy to be there. And, hopefully we'll be able to return the favor at some point. And, which I think is good that, departments in this day and age where a lot of departments are really challenged for staffing. And if you're dealing with combination or call departments or volunteers, they're having a real tough time getting trucks out the door. And they might be able to get one truck out the door, or maybe two, but they're not getting out what they used to. So, us all being able to be active more often, give each other the hand, gives us a little bit more confidence in each other's ability and knowing when people will come and when they may not be available, or what you're going to get when you get there, or what you can give them when you get there.
Yeah.
Just it makes a difference. And I think mutual aid has become, I know New England, New Hampshire have always been what I call Yankee fiefdoms, where we all want our name on the truck.
Yeah.
And we've really resisted regionalization of systems. But to a degree, we have regionalization of systems. We just all have different names on our trucks. And and as companies and departments work together more, you can call it whatever you want, and whoever signs the paycheck, I don't care, but all the departments are working together. The old days of, well, that was in our jurisdiction, and why didn't you call us? And it's not there like it used to be. And I think that's good. It's progressive for the fire service. And I know it happens all around the state now that, you go over to the seacoast and, man, you have a chimney fire in Dover, and you're getting Portsmouth and Rochester and every other department on the sun. They all work really well together. And I think that's a model that's coming together throughout the state more and more and more. And hopefully around New England more and more and more. Because if you go down south, you go down to Texas, you go down to Florida, Maryland, and whatnot, they're all working together.
Yeah.
There are some little examples, of some departments with some rivalries, but
yes,
you don't see that as the rule. That's kind of the exception to the rule. And, it makes the fire service better. And I think everybody, including the residents and the municipalities, are better off for it.
absolutely. Absolutely, Chief. I love that. Man, that's a great story. I love the outlook on it. And even to touch on the fact that Manchester had anything, they didn't have anything to do. Imagine if they said, no, we need to help you because obviously you got too much stuff going on. You can't handle this scene, because we all know that Chief DeRosa would kick in and be like, no, we're going to take care of this problem, because that's what we do. We fix things. And as firefighters, we see somebody not necessarily incompetent, but above, the water's going above their head. We're going to help them out because we care about the people we serve, whether it's Concord, Manchester, Boscawen, it doesn't matter. We see people in need. We're gonna help them out and fix that problem. So again, you guys are top notch, and Concord's always been leading from the front in your area, in your community, and everybody else knows it in the state. And it just shows what the leadership that you provide, with not micromanaging and trusting your crews, trusting your lieutenants, and that carries a lot, man. It pays dividends to let your crews actually be able to do the job and think. And like you said, you're just sitting by with your conductor, as you will, for the symphony. And like I've always said too, man, a fire ground should be like a symphony. It really is. If you think about it, if you put your headphones on and you put on beautiful classical music, your crews actually should be moving like that, right? Like everything just kind of falls into place. And as you're just conducting, a hose line's going in, then the ladder's going up, crews are doing it. And I would love to actually try that out as an experience one day, like just to put headphones on and listen to classical music as an active scene's unfolding, to buff a call and just see if it works that way and see how the music plays, and if it all lines up. I might have to try that one day, because I bet it will. I really do. So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's fun.
It is, absolutely is. When you have well-trained crews, man, they operate like beautiful music. That says a lot.
To that point, I guess the one thing I would leave you with on that is departments should have a playbook, whether it's a department, a shift, part of the training that goes into the shift. And I've asked, my crews, my officers to always, I don't mind if you call an audible, but if you're going to call an audible, make sure it's a play that we're all familiar with calling. Because if you call something off the wall and you're saying Nebraska, and we're saying Omaha, nobody knows what the hell's going on. Nobody knows what you're doing. But if you call a play or an audible out of the playbook, everybody knows what to do. Whether it's laying in, whether it's we're going to make an unconventional thing, but we've trained on it, or we're going to do VES when normally you would expect us to be doing something else. Or we're going into rescue mode and we're not going into attack mode. Call the play. Because when you call the play, everybody else knows, hey, I got to pick up that linebacker coming out of the backfield, or I'm going to have to go into man coverage for that next thing. And that's the same thing on the fire ground, is that if you call a play that everybody's familiar with, everybody just backs each other up. And that was the case the night of that fire, was that no matter what we did, I know that everybody had a plan to back each other up. And they would recognize that when something got not necessarily abandoned, but the crew had to go in a different direction, and they're filling right in. And that just makes every fire scene go so well when everybody's looking out for the same goal.
Yes, sir. I love it. Thank you so much, Chief, for telling that story and talking about your experiences with that fire. I think it's so important. When everyone saw it on the news here in New Hampshire, it was like, wow, that's going to be a tough call. It's going to be a great learning experience, and to have you hear it, have you tell it, and for us to hear it. I mean, that's fantastic, and I thank you for that. Unfortunately, we didn't get to get a list of the questions we have, man. We have some good ones, but I want to, as we're winding down, you have a good one here, and the humorous concept of the active bitch face. Elaborate on that.
So that's kind of a humorous personal joke. A lot of you will know Jay Heath, who's a dispatcher down in Salem. He worked in Concord for a while, but he's a world-class photographer.
Yes, he is.
And we're so blessed to have him here in New Hampshire, because he gets great shots everywhere. And they're published in all the trade magazines and everything. And I've known Jay. He was the dispatcher on my shift when I started back in 1995. And for whatever reason, Jay has always managed to catch me in photos with the worst expression on my face. And we've come to joke about it as my active bitch face. And it's usually me doing something like this, and I've got never smile. And anytime he posts a picture of me, it's like, geez, Jeff, will you smile? Don't you ever smile? Are you ever happy about anything? And I'm always happy about stuff, but he always catches me in that moment when I've got this rotten look on my face, or it looks like I'm yelling at somebody, and the memes start flying and everybody starts marking stuff up, and we have a good time with it, but it's kind of funny how someday he's going to catch me with a smile on my face and nobody's going to know what to do.
That's funny. I've heard from other people, like when they get caught on cameras, it's never their best side. They just absolutely like they're caught in a blink, or they're caught, rubbing their nose and looks like they're picking it or something, so it just happens to be the name of the game. So it's always the ones who actually can see the camera and they're like, okay, I got to get ready. And they're going to make it look like they're busy. That's awesome. I'm going to have you come back on, Chief, because there's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover. And I really want to talk to you more about it. Like, I never used to be a big nozzle and hose guy, and I absolutely love it more and more. And I've definitely become more of that engine ops person. And I want to talk more about hoses and attack packages and what you guys run in Concord, and what you have learned over the years for attack packages, what works the best. There's a lot of questions. I mean, I could talk about hoses and nozzles for 5 hours now. So don't get me started, Chief. I'm not going to talk about it now. So we're going to wind down. Chief Stone, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you spending the time with me.
You really had a good time.
Absolutely. If you guys have any questions about the event that we just talked about, and any other questions too about conferences, outside trainings, if you want to pick Chief Stone's brains about hoses, nozzles, pretty much anything fire service related and not fire service related, if it's life questions, I'm not trying not to speak for Chief Stone, but he's an open book. He's made it very clear he's an open book. He's lived a great life, and he continues to show what kind of man he is by spreading that passion, planting the seed, as I always use that word now from Don Sapp, planting the seed. And Chief Stone definitely does plant that seed, and he wants everyone else to grow into leaders and provide a fire service that we can all be proud of for futures and generations. So thank you so much again, Chief. It's been an absolute pleasure. Anything that you want to say or sign off with at all?
No, I think, I guess the only thing I would sign off with, I appreciate all the compliments. The thing to always remember is it's not about you. And the fire service, it's a gift to work in this job. But when we all retire and we're no longer here, there's not a single thing that we can take with us into retirement that we can say, they don't need to know that. I'm hoarding that. If you're not leaving everything that you've learned in your career on the table, at the kitchen table in the fire station, when you walk out the door, then you're not doing the fire service right.
Absolutely.
And so to me, that's, like you said, I love working with the newer generation, and giving them some of that stuff that guys like Mike Clark, guys like Gary Johnson, guys like Tom Kenny left for me. And, that's what legacy is that, legacy gets passed down generation to generation. And those guys made my career, and I'm hoping I can give 1/10 of that back to some of the other guys. And whether it means coming on a webcast or, sitting down, doing a one-on-one, and it doesn't always have to be about fire service stuff. It's, life happens. And, as you get older in life, you've been through some things, you've seen a thing or two. So, share that stuff and be that person that's willing to step up, whether it's somebody who's getting it or you think isn't getting it. Success in the fire service is about self-motivation, and you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So I'm putting everything I got into it, and hopefully I'll get the same type of thing and reward in my next chapter.
I love it. That's great, Chief. That means the information's perfect. That's a message that everyone should live by. And you're absolutely right. We can't take it with us, and we would need to remember that. And thank you so much for reminding us that. I appreciate you so much, sir. Thank you, everybody. As we talk about passion is contagious. Infect your crews, infect the people around you. It's not a dirty word to love the job, and it's not a dirty word to have passion for it and give back. So thank you again, Chief Stone. Thank you all for listening in. Again, any questions that you want to ask, by all means, reach out to him. He'd be happy to answer them for you. So everyone be safe, be well, and I'll talk to you soon. Mazel tov.
Thanks, folks.